And I remember him saying like, no, I'm going to stop seeing her. So like, you do not dare to stop seeing her. Because I don't really want you to stop seeing her. I just want you to know that I'm going through all of that and I need your empathy. And like just the navigation of those, like, actually, I don't want you to stop seeing her, and him feeling like, I don't want to cause you so much pain. And I was like, I know, it's excruciating. It was excruciating. Like, I just want people to understand, like, jealousy and working through trauma is excruciating.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from all over the world to hear their personal journeys of self-discovery through the lenses of love, sex, and relationships.
Our mission is to show people that they're not alone and to inspire them to embrace their true selves so that together we can open minds and live authentically without shame.
We believe everyone's story is powerful and beautiful, yet it's important to remember that everyone does life a little bit differently and that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we aren't doctors. Please consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Well, welcome to episode 399. We're Finn and Emma.
Getting close.
We're really close to episode 400. We're so close. But we have to get out episode 399 first.
Yeah, and this is not one to be skipped.
Exactly. So today we are excited to share a beautiful conversation with Danielle. She has been immersing herself in learning all about sexuality and relationships from a very early age, as you'll see. She's been married over 30 years and open for over 20 of those.
Yeah, one of the things I absolutely love about this conversation is just how vulnerable Danielle is about some of the challenges and struggles that she's had and that she and her husband have had as they've navigated this for 20 years. And that even when you're a sex and relationship coach, when you're a therapist, when you've done all of this work, and even after doing this for, 10 or 15 years, you can still get walloped with some of these challenges, with jealousy, with struggles. And so just really grateful to Danielle for sharing that and for really normalizing that jealousy is just an emotion we all feel. And you can't stop it necessarily.
Yes.
You just have to feel the shit out of it.
I know.
And it's hard. So thank you, Danielle, for coming on, for sharing your story, and for the incredible work you do. We'll talk much more about this later in the episode, and Danielle will dig into it. But Danielle is one of the co-founders of the Somatica Institute, which is a sex and relationship coaching program and certification. And they've also started offering courses and workshops for people who are not necessarily going in for the certification. So just wanted to make that clear. I also want to share that this is the program that I went through. I did about 18 months of work in the Somatica program, went to a couple of their in-person immersions, and got so much out of this. Even though I'm not necessarily coaching one-to-one, I got a ton out of this for my own life, for my own relationships, and so highly recommend checking it out. One other thing that Danielle offered is a discount to one of their programs. So if you look in the show notes, you'll see a link there to save $30 off of one of their courses. So please take a look at that. And we also wanted to just do a quick shout out to the other co-founder of Somatica, which is Celeste. We interviewed Celeste back on episode 391. Another great conversation. So please go check that out. Check out all of the work at Somatica.
For anyone who's a premium subscriber, we're going to jump right into the interview with Danielle right now. And a little abruptly.
Right now.
And for anyone else, we're going to go through a few announcements. First up, if you're not familiar with the premium subscription, it's a way to skip these announcements up front, but don't worry, we still share important dates of upcoming events in the outro. To sign up for the premium subscription, go over to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, scroll down the homepage, and you can sign up right there for $4 a month.
Next up, we want to remind you all that we have a community full of over 300 incredible people from around the world, socializing, supporting one another every single day.
You may have heard us talk about it.
We mentioned it one time last week. We host our community over on a platform called Mighty Networks. We have monthly community calls. We have in-person retreats, and we've recently started offering free monthly workshops, which are hosted by incredible educators from around the world on topics ranging from shame, jealousy, sexual health, abandonment, all the good stuff that you're going to feel when you're being in relationships with people, or frankly, when you're just moving through the world as a human.
Yes, our next monthly workshop is coming up July 17th. It's going to be Relational Repair with David Cooley. Come and join the community. Come and join the workshop. We would love to have you. We also have more upcoming workshops the rest of the year on reframing hierarchy, strengthening connection through play, and choosing a pleasure-based life, and so much more. Again, go over to the community tab of our website. There you can find out out a lot more information about our community, as well as a lot more information about all of these workshops.
One quick note, too, about David. He co-authored Polywise with Jessica Fern, and you can actually hear David's story back on episode 312. So please check that out and check out more of David's work. Again, links to all of that are in the show notes, or if you check out that workshop page of our website, you'll get to see all of the information about David.
Next up, we wanted to remind all of you about our favorite way to get tested for STIs. You hear us talk about this all the time as well, but it is stdcheck.com. Using the links on the resources page of our website saves you $10, making a 10-panel test only $129, and it supports the podcast and the show. So thank you so much in advance for using those links, and for anyone who's used them in the past. stdcheck.com is a great way to get tested for STIs, know your sexual health status, and it's really fast, efficient, and discreet. So go and check it out.
And the last thing we wanted to tell you all was that we'd love to have you come on the podcast to share your story. You don't have to be the co-founder of anything. You don't have to be a content creator. You just have to be you, and you just have to want to share your story with the world. We'd love to have you. This show doesn't actually exist without people like you. So please reach out to us. Let us know you want to come on. Or if you have a question or some feedback, we also take those as well.
Yes.
but primarily, we want you to come on and share your story.
And with that, let's go and talk with Danielle.
Welcome to the podcast, Danielle. We're excited to chat today. I know you. I've got a bit of background with you. Emma's first time meeting you, so we're excited to have you here today to share your story and to talk a bit about your work and life.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here, and I'm really love that I get to connect with you, Finn, in a different space, which is your special space. I love to be a guest here, and I'm excited to meet you, Emma.
Yeah, I'm excited to meet you too. We'd love for you to start by introducing yourself at whatever level you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, so I'm happy to talk both about the professional and the personal, right?
Yeah.
So I am, I am Danielle Harrell. I got my PhD in human sexuality. I'm one of the co-founders of the Somatica Institute, where Celeste and I kind of created the Somatica method, because we really felt that the best way to learn intimacy is through mutually vulnerable connection. And we kind of started from ground up to see what people actually need. What are the skills? Because intimacy is learnable, right? And most of the people think that you either have it or not. And we just like, no, you can actually break it down like any other skill, and you can learn it, and you can grow your skill set both around sexuality and intimacy, relationship. And then, so I love living that life of living Somatica every day. And I love teaching people how to bring Somatica to their lives, because I see that it enriches everyone that it touches.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we'll definitely dig into it more. And for anybody who didn't gather, that's how I know you. I went through the Somatica program. I went through the core. I went through the advanced. I've been to multiple of the in-person immersions. So we've got some history under our belts at this point. So, I'd love to dig into it more, but I'd love to go back in time for you, Danielle. Were you growing up, or at what point did all of this world of sexuality, intimacy, relationships, what did that look like for you at the beginning? Or were you always this somatic? You were just this enlightened from the beginning?
We all wish, didn't we? First, I think it was somatic from right the beginning. I was a very limbic embodied person. But for me growing up, I got a lot of policing from my family, mostly my mom, that had the best intentions, but really constantly corrected me. I think my parents were immigrants, and then there's something about immigrants that they have this really desire to make their kids the best so they will fit in and won't suffer. So I know it all came from really, really good intention, but the experience on me was, of course, that I wasn't fitting in, and I wasn't ever good enough, ever. So, but there was one area that was not touched. And this was great because it was about sex. No one talked about it. It was the best blessings that happened to me because no one talked about sex. So I could become myself in that place, and I didn't need to share it with anyone, and it was not like scrutinized or policed in any way. So I kind of like started to like immerse in my sexuality, and like no one talked about it, so I definitely knew more than anyone else. And when I was like 16, I already like read Masters in Johnson and knew everything in theory, and I was talking with all my friends about it. So I wanted to be a sexologist when I was 16. Of course, it was not an available profession back then, so I had to go through the psychology route and like do a lot of other things that were less interesting for me. And when me and my husband, and when we moved to the US, I was just like, oh my God, I never want to do anything else. I just want to do, I just want to either not work or talk about sex with people all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting though. I didn't realize. So growing up, you were sort of policed everywhere but sex. Like it was sort of like a void. That's really got to be disorienting to be like, everything in life is do it this way so you fit in, but there's just like this big mystery box that is also
That's there but not there.
and so ubiquitous and present in our lives.
I know, but no one talked about it. And I was like, okay. Like, it was kind of blessing for me because everything that was talked about was policed. So I was just like, hey. So it was kind of untamed. How do you say it? Like, not tainted, or like it was really, it was kind of like stayed kind of an empty place that I could fill in any ways that I could and I wanted to. And that was kind of actually really nice because it was a place of freedom for me.
Yeah, you didn't have any of the scripts because you didn't know anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what did it look like when you started? I mean, you said you were reading sounds like early on you were basically what's the word? A scholar. You're basically a scholar in high school learning about it and the theoretical side, but what was it like when you started actually trying to like live it?
And have relationships, yeah.
I know. Who does that? The most important thing is being a scholar, clearly. I know. I was really fascinated by sex. I was like, wow, like all this stuff that no one tells you about. And, and if you kind of, we do the character training in Somatica, so you kind of know that the people that are usually get scrutinized like that love to kind of push boundaries in other places. So for me, this was like the place that I kind of had an opportunity to push boundaries without being under the radar. So I really loved it. So it really worked well with my core desires and kind of like getting my naughty self into full aliveness. I was always curious about sex. It was always fascinating for me. And I just loved sex just for the experience of just like, like trying things. I was just fascinated by it. And I just like didn't have a lot of holdbacks. So I was just like, yeah, we're having sex. Let's do that, So it was like a really fun experience. And again, like it almost sounds like I grew up in a vacuum around sex. Like literally no one talked about it. I'm thinking about it. My friends didn't talk about it. It was like a no. How did I grow up like that? I don't know. But that happened, and that allowed me the freedom to explore. But then, so relationship, I don't know, like I pretty early on kind of got into different kinds of like more like committed relationships. But even like, I remember being my first boyfriend, which was like really not a good choice for me. It's kind of like not very supportive or complimentary or celebratory of who I am, who I was. But growing up the way I grew up, I didn't even think it's necessary to find someone celebratory, but that changed.
Yeah.
But the thing was that I remember that he was kind of like not excited about, like he had this like ideas about sex, and I never felt like I'm getting, like he was like holding back on sex and he just wanted to get blowjobs. And I was like, what about me? Like, hello. So I just like reached out to a friend and I said, while I was in that let's talk about like, like getting out of the box. And I said like, hey, like I feel that you're gonna really offer me like the best supportive experience to like lose my virginity. And he really did. And it was like one of the most beautiful memories that I have, like from losing my virginity. I feel very lucky because it was like, okay, like I wasn't willing not to take myself into account and just do stuff. So I ended up just, going for what I wanted. So in some ways, I kind of always was in some sort of like, it never felt wrong to me, like it was always in some sort of like open, like triangles.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's really interesting though, right? Growing up, like you said, the vacuum is powerful and it gives you that blank slate. But also, I mean, I just think back to my own, like how much, not that it was good information, but how much information I was getting from my classmates, from the school bus, from all of these places. And I think for me, it was often I would hear something and then I would try to go and fact check it and learn like, what was that? I'd hear a word and I'd nod along like, oh yeah, we all know what that means. And then I'm like, I don't know what any of this is. And then I'd go and learn about it. But you're like blazing the whole path for yourself and with people who aren't talking about it and aren't thinking about it. And so I feel like it's just disorienting to be the one person who almost like knows all of this stuff. And then you're trying to find a way for it to feel good.
Yeah, I remember my friend from high school. Like people just did not talk about it. I don't know what we spend time talking about because today I talk like 95% of my time talking about sex and relationships, but we did not talk about it. We did talk about relationships. We did a lot of relationship drama. Who wants who's attractive, who's not attractive, all this stuff, high school stuff, but not about sex. And then I do remember a friend of mine because I wasn't a late bloomer emotionally, but action-wise, I was a late bloomer. Like I was ready much earlier, just didn't feel confident to go out and seek it out. And I just remember my friend who she was already like in a long-term relationship when she was like 16. We just like snuck out of school and she taught me how to kiss on a pillow. There goes somatica for you. Like, she was just like, that's how you do it. And I was like, wow, it doesn't feel good. It's very dry on a pillow, but okay, I'll do it.
Dry on a pillow.
Open for experiences,
It's very dry on a pillow. Yeah.
Well, like open-minded. Be like, I'm just going to try this. Why not? I don't know what this is all about. So
yeah. And the thing is that because I was like I didn't have this like judgment, sometimes it got me into trouble, right? Like I just remember like being so curious and I hooked up with this guy and I gave him like the most amazing blowjob for me. I loved it. I don't even remember anything from that person except for my experience and, he was not there. Like it was just for me. It was the most empowering experience on the planet. And I felt so relaxed and good about it. And I felt so, like empowered and sexy and hot. And then the day after, I was stopped by people because he talked. I didn't know what's up with those. Some people, like the talking is more important than the doing. But telling the story later. So then people kind of stopped me and I felt very shamed about this experience. It was more like, are you getting shamed and threatened? So that kind of said like, hey, maybe I can't really just be me. But again, I just was able to say like, I can't be me in this place. I'm just going to find places that feel safe to keep being me.
Yeah.
And enjoy sex.
Which is, I think that's such a powerful takeaway, right? Rather than going to the place of like who I am is wrong. It's just I'm just not going to try to be me here. But that was fucking awesome, regardless of whether or not these people can handle it.
Right.
Exactly.
Kind of how you did when you lost your virginity. You found a person that you felt safe with.
Yeah. Because I felt like, wow, like he will. I didn't feel like he will be a good partner for me, but I felt like he cares for me so much and he have experience and he will be able to give me that first experience. And that was, something very intuitively right about going for it, and not just, I have to do it in my relationship. Well, clearly that guy didn't want to do it. It's like, okay.
Well, which I think, we hear that often with people who are opening relationships or exploring non-monogamy, which is this person likes to do this activity and this one likes to do this. Like, why am I going to quote, force somebody to do a thing that they don't even really like to do just because I want to do it, or that's where I'm supposed to do it. It sounds like you were very early on, like, I'm going to find the right people to do the things that I want to do with, even if that's not what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I think like at the end of the day, like pushing people to do stuff, like the likelihood of him being able to actually give me what felt good to me would be so slim because he was so focused on himself. So you don't get good experiences from forcing someone to do stuff for you. It just like doesn't work.
No.
Unless it's a consensual forcing. Just
Sure.
Right.
Like everyone want to be forced and everyone want to force. That's a different experience.
Yeah.
Well, and there's even the difference between, and I think we all do this, right? Like, oh, it's not my favorite thing, but I'll do it. Like, oh, I don't love Mexican food, but I'll go eat tacos with you because I love eating tacos with you. I love doing things with you. And there is a difference between that and tacos are my favorite food, and we're going to go to the taco truck and we're going to party there until 3 a.m. Like, you can have a taco truck experience, and it can be a very different just depending on who you do it with.
Yeah, I love tacos.
Yeah.
Together.
I know. I was like, everyone, not everyone. I feel like most people love tacos.
Or some sort of like variation of tacos.
Yes.
I think there's so many options with tacos these days. You can get any taco that you want.
Yeah.
So as you started exploring then, when, I don't know, how did relationships go for you in terms of like forming these where partners open to you being like, hey, I'm going to do these things with you and I might do some things over here. Were people open to that as you started trying to create relationships for yourself?
Yeah. So first, we do need to remember that experience of me reaching out for that, my apparently first lover, it helped me get out of my, gain my sexual experience fully and not just partially. I did not lose anything. It was a gain all around. Was like my partner didn't know about it. It's not like I talked to him about it, but it felt like, like that was important because apparently my partner back then did not really care about my experience. I was not willing to put myself on the back burner for the sake of the relationship. And I think like that's like something that guides me a lot, like this thought. And I want everyone to feel like that, right? Like if that's what they want to feel, but like to feel empowered to say like, wow, like that part is not working for me. How can we work with that? But he actually wasn't a good partner for me because he wouldn't be like flexible or think about like my needs kind of at all. So when I met my husband, we really kind of met, took us some time to form our relationship and kind of like move, but we didn't plan to have an open relationship. So I got like married really young and we just knew that we can talk about things together. And, and we had like a family already, and we moved to the US and I had 2 children, and it was like not something that we talked a lot about or thought about. So it was kind of like, but then like one day my husband and just talked about him being interested. I remember I was like breastfeeding my daughter. My daughter was just born. I was breastfeeding my daughter. And it's funny because you, Finn, know her too. Because she's in somatica.
Yep, I've gone through somatica with both your kids.
I know. And we all like went through somatica with my family part of it as well. So she was a baby. And I remember my husband coming to me and he brought this idea and he said, like, like kind of excited about going on this business trip. And he's like a very honest person, like I learned a lot of my honesty from him because like in my family, you just didn't talk about things. So you just did whatever you wanted under the radar. That was like if you're not caught, it's all good. So I learned a lot of that like idea of like integrity and honesty from him in like a very, I was like, he just talked about it. And so like, I'm attracted to this woman in my, that works with me, and we go on a business trip, and how are you going to feel about me having sex with her? And I'm just like breastfeeding my daughter. I'm going back to that because it was like kind of like
painting the picture.
Yeah, just a bit of an interesting moment. And I was just thinking about it, and it just like inspired me to think about like, wow, like just the way he shared it, I said like, wow, like I'm not going to hold him back from having the life that he wants. Like it was like clear. It was so clear to me. And like, because it felt like a value. It felt like, no, like we each deserve to have like the life that we want. And if you're attracted, like I don't have to be your only sex partner ever. So I said like, oh wow, like you can definitely do that. And that's how we started. This was the first moment of our journey together. This is the first conversation we ever had about opening our relationship. Just kind of nice. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, how did it go? I was going to say, how did it go? Because that's.
I know. So he went, and I like kept telling him, just make sure you use condoms. Like, and of course, I was anxious and scared and like freaking out a little bit because like, who does that? Who does those things? Like it's not like we had a bunch of people we talked about on that about this topic, right? It wasn't very popular to have podcasts on this topic back then either. Like I'm like married for 30 years and open for 20 of them, a little bit more than 20. So it's kind of a long journey. I just feel like what was important that I kept like sharing my feelings. And I do feel this feeling like I want to be cool. Like I want to be cool for him, and I need to kind of manage my anxiety a little bit. So I just kept asking him about condoms. Just this is my way. This is my way of knowing if he's actually having sex with her or not, without actually nagging him. Just about the condoms.
Yeah. Have you opened the box yet? How many are left?
Like a very young version of myself, right? So it's just like
right?
Yeah.
So he was going on this work trip, but you didn't. It wasn't like a for sure, right? It wasn't I'm going to do this. It was the potential or the opportunity if it came up, right?
Yes, definitely. And when he came back, he actually did not end up having sex with her. But
so all of that for that, yeah, right? Like,
yeah. But I think that was the most important actually thing that happened is that that was incorporated in our relationship as an option.
Yeah.
And that was like really like a moment of choice of how do we want to live our lives? Is that, like, and again, we didn't even have the terminology. It was just like very intuitive and very much about like, how do we want to live our lives as a couple? Is that, how do we want to, and we are both of us are very freedom oriented. Like we're like super committed human beings. It's funny because like people have this idea about non-monogamy that people like kind of cheat and lie and do stuff. And I was like, no, we actually really super committed human being. And what we're committed to is to being honest with each other and to share our experiences and a life with each other and like really be there to process emotionally when things come up.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the gateway then for more conversations and more sort of going down that path to where maybe you didn't just focus on the condoms?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the first moment, and again, like over time, my skill set developed, and developing somatica helped me develop my skill set as well, because I was like taking the more like aware or conscious route to see what people need, and as well as myself through those explorations, right? So, and then we kept talking about like how we want to do it. And I love it that it took us some time. Like, I feel like sometimes people just jump right away to do things. And I think like there's so much, and I'm actually someone who jumps right away to do things, that I don't have a big leap or big gap between wanting and doing. You know, I have like a thought and an immediate, I'm like a very action oriented person. But luckily, my sweet husband, he loves like also like dreaming and thinking and building things. So we were just like talking and going on small incremental experiences to try things out. And like, so we went to a swinger club, you know, and then we tried out that experience. And, I noticed, you know, when you open your mind and you start to feel that it's okay to flirt with the world and flirt with people, you start to notice that other people are doing it too. So then we found like, oh, then I thought that I had like a couple in our friends group back then that they might be open because the guy was checking me out. And I was like, kind of people don't usually do it unless they have something that they feel okay to do in their relationship, because we're in the same friends group. And he really loved his wife, and it was very clear that it's nothing. And then he just like, so I remember that moment that we hung out with them, and I just directly with my very, you know, very, you know, unashamed way, I was just like, so you like, we were in the hot tub together, you know, and I just
As it
said,
were. I was going to predict that, but okay.
I didn't know. They were just like, it was like clothed, you know, bathing
yeah.
suit, just like the regular way. They just had a hot tub, and we lived in,
The
you know,
regular
the
way.
East Coast. It was cold. You go to the hot tub in the winter because it's nice and warm. And I was I was with him in the hot tub, and his wife and my husband were like in the kitchen preparing stuff. And then I asked him, so are you guys swingers? Like with my very simple way, direct way. You know what happened? He just dunked himself in the hot tub trying.
Oh, did he? He was wanting to avoid the question.
He just didn't know what to do with it because he didn't plan on the question to pop, and he felt like he needed permission from his wife to out themselves. And I was like, I don't know. You need to ask my wife.
I'll be underwater until she comes back out.
I'm like, how long are you going to hold your breath?
Yeah, I think people are not prepared for the direct, right? If you carry so much shame around it and the guilt and the hiding, and then somebody can just come at you bluntly, it's jarring a little bit. So I love that. I love that you called them out on it.
I was like, honestly, like I think I'm telling you this, being sheltered around sex just makes me much more naive around it. And then I'm just like talk with people as if I'm talking about like the daily, I don't know, the daily lunch or anything else. So it just like takes people by surprise. Yeah.
So how did it go from there? I'm just curious. Did the four of you get to have the conversation?
We did have the conversation, but it was more like an advice conversation as opposed to we're attracted to each other conversation. So we just like kind of were like each other's support. They were like much more of our support because we knew nothing about that. And they're like, hey, you should try that party or you should go to that place, you know? So it was just like really fun to just even talk with someone, even if you don't feel attracted and want to go beyond the talking. It just, your beautiful podcast is doing this work, right? Like you're not alone. You get to kind of have other people share their experiences with you as well. So that was very, very empowering.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that right out of the gate you had that, because I think that's something that so many people, I will say they need, right? We need support that isn't the people we're trying to hook up with or that we're trying to form partnerships, but just people that we can talk to and say, this is happening, this is what's going on for me. And you can get an objective opinion from somebody who understands it, but isn't angling for something.
Exactly. Because then you can like really be relaxed and not worry about like, oh, I need to manage that relationship with them at the same time. So definitely. Yeah.
And so like, it sounds like in some ways, a really like a good entry into the whole world. You had conversations with your husband and with other people and kind of built from there.
Yeah, it felt like very organic. It's very, my husband and I sometimes, we talk about it and we ruminate and we think about like, wow, how, I have a lot of history. I'm just like, oh, wow, you remember when we did that?
Yeah.
And when people ask us, so how did you meet? Like, just like all those questions. And I was like, wow, I think like we were always kind of open and able to talk about our relationships with other people while we were in relationship with each other. And that's kind of very, people talk today about like micro cheating, this term. I'm hearing about it. It's just like, oh, I hearted someone and I'm a sinner. And I was like, wait, like you can't turn off, like if you really want to develop like a wholesome relationship with someone, you want to be able to talk to them about like your turn-ons and what are you attracted to, and maybe you're attracted to other people, and like trust that you can handle it and not just like feel that you need to hide those parts of yourself, but that's my personal opinion. People have different opinions about that. So
Yeah. And so how did has it gone? It sounds like very organic, and then as over the last several years, like how did it go? Did you hit bumps?
yeah, I think I do have to say that I think we actually have very smooth, you know,
Mhm.
we've been very smooth on that because like things kind of developed very organically. I also
Yeah.
think that what happened is that my husband, like part of his core desire is like this freedom, and like he likes to know that I'm a sexual person. It excites him that I'm a sexual person. He loves it that I'm having sex with other people. And and I'm a little bit more possessive and more jealous, but it was all good when because he was forming like more short-term relationships with people, and that felt like really relaxed and fun for me. It didn't like when him having sex with other people is never threatening for me. It just feels like, oh my God, that's so great. I'm so happy you're doing that. That always felt like that. So, but I think the bumps that we experienced was like more when when we kind of like, maybe they're like two important like milestones that we achieved. I want to call it milestones, which were more like once was so as we were progressing, like we had the first actual sexual experience with other people, and it was really fun. And I have this tendency to develop more like one-on-one relationships with people and not just like keep the swingers route, because I think we both figured out the swinging is not exactly our way of being. It was just like a way to tiptoe into it. And that we kind of like to have our own relationships with people as opposed to just like try to be in bed with each other all the
Yeah.
time. We didn't feel like that would be of interest for us. And we're like so different. I was like, why do you even try to fit? What I love about us is that different, and that we need different things as much as we want and love each other. We also need other things. So it allowed us to expand that. So when we moved to the Bay Area and I started my PhD in human sexuality, met Celeste, all those things happened, right? So I was also in a huge experimentation. That's, I think, like pretty much when we like really launched a full on opening. And I was experimenting a lot, and that was really fun and very sexy. And I kind of found I usually go into like more like long-term relationships with people, and then some small explorations at the same time. And my husband was doing more like small explorations as opposed to like long-term relationships. So I've been having like a long-term relationship for almost like 20 years with one of my lovers, and that's been like very steady and wonderful. And I think like the first bump we hit was when I asked my lover back then to just like come to our house and just like help me like vacuum. Like it was literally a practical thing. Okay.
Mhm.
It was a practical thing. It was not sexual at all. And I do love acts of service, but he had this like good vacuum cleaner and I had a spot on the carpet. And I asked him if he can come in and clean the spot with his special vacuum cleaner. And I thought it's going to be like an event. I didn't even think it will be triggering at all.
Mhm.
Okay. And my husband is so like, no jealousy issues whatsoever. But when I told him that my boyfriend came and cleaned it, oh my God, he completely freaked out. That's what hit his, buttons, because it was more like, oh wow, one thing to have a lover, another thing to do domesticity with your lover. Cleaning the rug was very domestic, domestic experience. And I was like, oh my God, I just thought you're going to enjoy benefiting from that because like he did it for us.
Now our carpet's clean.
You don't need to do it. But that stepped on his toes of like this person who cares for the household. And, like everyone has some sort of like a role and identity. And we had to like really process through it. And again, like all the tools that we've developed in Somatica are very, very much based on those like life experiences, right? Like, how do you repair? How do you sit with feelings? How do you acknowledge people's feelings? How do you not keep pushing? And I had to take a little break from my lover so I can help our relationship to recover. So that was one of the first bumps that we had. I'm going to call it a milestone because I think it's so beautiful, because that's what really helped us grow. I feel like people have this fantasy that they can go through everything and not have any challenges in the road. But, those challenges are just opportunities to grow and see what are you capable of, how you can deepen the connection between you, how you can like get closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I heard this the other day that just, it comes to mind here is if the reaction to something that happened is more than a 5, it's not about the thing. It's not about the vacuum. It's not about the stain on the carpet. It's about something else. And I think these are the moments that, Emma and I have so many of these over our history of thinking like, oh, we're good. We're doing this great. And then something comes out of left field and you're like, why are we fighting about that? Why did the vacuum, we talked to a couple a while ago where they were totally fine watching each other hook up, doing all the sex stuff, anything you want. And one of them like put up some Christmas lights with their partner around the holidays. And it was like, whoa, like like the world was ending. And so these things really shine a light on places and parts of us that we don't get to explore very often.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Isn't it amazing? Like how those little things, I didn't even anticipate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that he and I on the same team. It's like, let's have someone help us out here. Why not?
Right. Yeah. And I've got a plumber that I'm going to date in a couple of weeks. We're going to get a yard guy. We've got it all figured out here.
I know, because it works my core desires anyway. Like, why not? I love acts of service. I'm a mom. I need like help anytime. So people do stuff for me. So it was more like, it's true. It was just like stepping on his, and I think like I'm happy to share other experiences, because I think like there's something so important about like these are such an opportunities to see what is it that's actually means something to your partner, or what is it that like really like what's the inner workings behind the scene that like what's special for them.
Yeah.
And I do think in non-monogamy, I think the biggest fears that people have, that's when jealousy arises, is that they're replaceable and that they're not special. And that, and I think like that's, if I'm thinking about the triggers that we had, these were the triggers for each of us in different ways. They show up in different ways. Like, right? He's like, why do you need me if you have someone else to clean your carpet? Well, of course, I love you beyond cleaning the carpet, right? It's just like, but it just hits that spot of, and it seems so silly when I tell the story, but it actually hit a deep spot of belonging and importance in your life and replaceability, Yeah. So that's like, I feel what happened. And I had a very similar experience when he started to date someone recently, a couple of years ago, kind of like in a long term, instead of like having like short term relationships with people. And he was just like, he did somatic, and I was like, I actually want to have friends that I have sex with. I was like, okay, that's amazing. That's so wonderful. I'm delighted. But then like when he actually started to do it, I freaked out because so much of our relationship is about our friendship, and so much about our relationship is about spending time and doing things together. And I'm like, I love to meet with lovers just to have sex, and I don't want to do a lot of other things with them. I just want to have loverships. I don't want to travel with them. I don't want to spend hours and hours with them. I just want to do loverships. But he loves to have friends, means go hiking with them, do things with them. And it's like, what about me? It's like, I'm your hiking partner. Why are you hiking with them? So those things triggered me, and it felt like I can be replaced. What's special about our relationship? These were like kind of like the places that the fear of losing our specialness and our like special position for each other showed up.
So how did you work through that?
Oh my God.
Because it's a very common one.
I know. It was one of the most intense year of my life. I just want to say, because I think people think that I'm talking about it lightly now, but that was one of the deepest work I've done in my life, both personally and in our relationship. It was super triggering because I am much more possessive than him, and I'm much less self-processing than him. So I just like need to process with him a lot of my feelings, and I would have big feelings. And this was a lot, like the management of how much I share and how much I process, in therapy, or process with friends and process with support systems was really important. And I was super triggered, wildly triggered. And already almost like 20 years passed since he was triggered last time. So he forgot how it feels to be triggered.
Yeah. It's funny how that empathy is there, and then it's got a half-life as well.
I know. It's lucky we got 20 years and not much triggering going on in between. But, does happen, can happen anytime. Just need the right occasion. But really like that, what I felt was, again, because the level of triggering was so intense, it wasn't actually about what was happening. It was more about like my trauma and my wounds that were not touched before.
Mm-hmm.
Were just touched now. And that's where I kind of like did a lot of work. And and I remember him saying like, no, I'm going to stop seeing her. So like, you do not dare to stop seeing her. Because like, I don't really want you to stop seeing her. I just want you to know that I'm going through all of that and I need your empathy. And like, just the navigation of those, like, actually, I don't want you to stop seeing her, and him feeling like, I don't want to cause you so much pain. And I was like, I know, it's excruciating. It was excruciating. Like, I just want people to understand, like, jealousy and working through trauma is excruciating. Mm-hmm. That's true. But
yes.
It is so painful when you are in the thicket of it, because it just like, I was, I had to do like regulation of my nervous system every day, multiple times a day. I had intense freakouts. Like I had so many feelings coming out. But again, luckily, I was able to process a lot of it and understand that they are coming from the past and not from the present. And we also, I had to work through realizing like, what are the things that I need to hear from, because he was reassuring me all the time. Okay. But he wasn't hitting the stuff that I needed him to hit in the reassurance, and like telling me, he would tell me, but we have this history together. And I was like, what the heck? Who cares about history? People get divorced all the time. Like, it wasn't hitting my security. So I had to like really like tell him, like, so I really need to hear that I'm like your best friend and I'm your person. And, and like, and even like work with him on the energy of how I needed to hear it. Like for it to hit my limbic system, to feel like deep in my body. Mm-hmm. Those experiences and like it worked.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that you said that, Danielle, because as you're saying that, so many times we hear people say, well, if I have to tell you what I need to hear and how I need to hear it, then why are we doing this, right? You should know, and you should be able to do that.
Yeah.
I know. That's like such a damaging message, right? Like, because like he was really trying. He was like telling me everything that he could tell. It was just not the stuff that I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And this like mismatch of reassurance was so intense.
Yeah.
And just like, I just had to like, and he also like doesn't have great memory. So I had to like, so he don't remember in that way. So I just literally made him notes. And when I call it, I call it like, wow, I told him what I wanted. And then he went to the extra work of going through the notes and learning them and giving it to me. This is pure love. That's what I've considered as love. He listened, he made all the efforts and attempts to learn it, and he came back to me after like going through the notes, and it became second nature for him because now he knew what I needed to hear. He just needed to practice it and repeat it. It was really beautiful. I'm like really appreciative of him, like, working hard to make me feel secure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can feel, I don't know, the something else that stands out to me in this, Danielle, is that you're going through this really, really, really painful thing. And who do you normally go to in these moments is your best friend. And that was like the fucking trigger was, I'm afraid we're not best friends anymore. And I don't even have my best friend to go to. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah. And I'm afraid that if I'm going to share with you my feelings, you will feel limited.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you will feel triggered because that's what happens when there's a co-trigger, right? Like, if I share with you, you feel that I'm trying to manipulate you to stop seeing your person. And then you feel that you are not free to do. We both have a lot of freedom stuff, for good or for bad.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, then I feel like I'm limiting you, which I really don't want to.
Yeah.
And you don't want to, but then like, where's the balance here? And that's what we actually negotiated. It wasn't about negotiating the relationship with her. It was about negotiating freedom and attachment, individuation, attachment at the same time.
Yeah. And to do that, you have to be willing, and he does too. You both have to be willing to do your own work first. Because
yes,
you
and
have
at the same time, because it was like work connection.
Right. Right.
Yeah. We often say that's trying to fix the car while you're driving down the highway. Like you're under the hood, cranking on the engine while you're going 70 miles an hour down the highway. Like sometimes you just can't stop.
I know, that's how it felt like. And I'm telling you, it was the most intense time of my life, like really 100%. But it's really, doing my own work was so empowering because I was able to see how, like, what really matters to me, where's my wounds, and it's not like, and I just, again, like, I want to clarify, I've been doing my work my whole life.
Yep.
And this was just another layer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And another depth of this, of wounds. And like, I even figure out trauma that was never touched before in that way. And I was like, oh my God, wow, that happened. So I think like when people go on this journey of like deep intimacy, being in a non-monogamous relationship and doing the work is such an amazing opportunity for deep, deep, deep intimacy. Like the way we know each other now and the way we trust each other now is so greater, much greater than what we knew about each other before and how we can trust each other. It was like, you can't even compare the magnitude of difference of how much going through it bring us to love each other even more and appreciate each other even more. But this is like it's not easy. And I don't want people to think that it is easy.
Yeah.
No, I'm really glad that you share that because I think it could be easy for people listening to look in and go, well, you've written books, you've created these programs, you've done all the education, you've got a PhD in this, so this shouldn't be hard. And here you are saying, even just a few years ago, it's hard as fuck, and you're still uncovering, learning things, and discovering things about yourself that you might never have otherwise. And they came out of, I don't even know if it's conflict. They just came out of something that was a bump, a hard, rather than we just skated and cruised through this for our whole relationship with no bumps.
Yeah, we did. Like for 20 years, there were no bumps. And then like it hits us. And I was like, and that was like, wow, like, here you go. We're learning something about us. We're learning something about what we need. We're learning something about the next phase
Yep.
of our lives. It was very I think it's amazing to keep growing together, you know?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So much of what you share just feels so resonant. So I just
Well, we've never had that happen. What are you talking about?
I bet you haven't. Yeah, right. I love
Yeah.
that you are hosting this podcast because it's like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes. Yes.
You
we
know,
swim in these waters daily, so
yeah,
yes.
you know what happens with trauma. Just being hit just now. Oops. Abandonment trauma.
Yeah. And then you just trigger each other until you're like just two like hollowed out husks on the floor. Like, I don't know what happened, but we've been triggering each other for like a week straight and I just need a nap. So I'm going to do that.
Exactly. And like also know that you can't be each other's only resource. Like it's really impossible to
Yep.
Yeah.
detangle that level of triggering when you're the only people in the system. It's like you need a break from each other and you need to be able to process it with other people and then come back to the attachment between you to kind of remember, oh, we're still on the same team and we can duke this next little piece together, duke it out, just this next piece together. And then I'm going to go and like try again to do my own work and then I'm going to share it with you and then we like that's kind of like how the process goes and now we can talk about even like a little bit the scar that's left from that because there's a little scar and an embodiment. It's like more like on the body, like we know we have a solid feeling like we went through it and we're just like really loving and no one had to give up on who they are in the other relationships but sometimes the scar just still hurts, once in a while when there's like similar situation or something is unclear, the scar is like, ouch.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And you might have to recognize you need something in that moment, whether for yourself or ask your partner.
Exactly. And sometimes you just acknowledge, oh, that's a scar. We actually
Yeah.
doing good. It's just a memory. The
Yeah.
body does keep the memories. So it's just a memory. you know,
Yeah.
of this battle. And
Yeah.
like I love it because it's a win-win, it's like an experience that we both won from going
It's
through.
almost like a trophy, in some
Yeah.
ways I think about them, and just can really relate to so much of that experience, Danielle, because I mean, for us too, one of the things that happens when we get triggered, we have very similar, like that best friend is a big part of our relationship. We've known each other since we were 13 and we started as friends. And so like being friends is at the core of what we do. And so when one or both of us is triggered and we have to spend a day or two or three not talking, it's the worst. Because
It's
that's,
the worst.
for it's just the worst. And like you said, having other support is so critical.
Yeah, and like if we talk about attachment style, let's throw it in the mix as well. Like my
Yes.
husband is so much more avoidant and I'm like much more anxious. So I don't have time to process stuff. I was like, honey, you can't go in the corner now. Life is too short. I would like literally jump on his lap and I was like, you're talking to me now. I don't care. I do not recommend it, by the way. I do not recommend it, by the way. But I'm just saying, like my best professional recommendations is give him space. I could not give him space. I would be too triggered. So I was like jumping in his lap and say, like, okay, honey, we have to talk about it. You can't just like go into your corner because I am freaking out here. Just like make an effort. I know you're not hating me now. You just need time to recover, but make an effort. And he was just like, literally, one of the things that he learned to do in this process is to not do the silent treatment. It's not a punishment. The silent treatment is him like going and processing for 3 days. It moved into an hour. Don't you think it's amazing? I'm so proud of him. You can come back and process so much faster.
Yeah.
Phew.
Yeah.
Lucky me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You only have to be in that anxious world for a shorter amount of time.
Wow. I just
Yeah.
like this level of anxiety, like in life, I was able to go for him. Like, yeah, he needs a little alone time, like that didn't threaten me. But with that level of trigger, I was like, oh, honey, I cannot be 3 days in the, like under the silent treatment spell. So
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's the thing is, right? We often, our stuff needs, we like need two different things to heal, right? And you needed to be there fixing it and he needed to be away from it. And it's how do we meet in the middle? Or not even
Exactly.
in the middle. How do we meet anywhere? We just need to meet
I
somewhere.
know. I did use my very sheer body weight to make it.
It's here and it's now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
just like, this is it. This is my, I really need you to just say something, just to feel connection. We don't have to resolve it, but I can't have you go now to a corner and just freeze me out.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he found other ways to go and process, like, like you'll go on walks and he would process, and like it was really hard to have like be in the same space and like do side by side processing. It's too much from my nervous system. So
Yeah. Yeah, you find ways to take care of yourself and to try to meet your partner.
exactly.
Yeah.
Isn't
Yeah.
that beautiful? I really do think it's amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
I would love to change gears or directions just a little, because you had also said that one of the other major milestones along the way was coming out to your children, and I would love to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about that experience as well.
So many people out there are trying to figure
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah, and I do like it was really like this process of coming out to our children was a big one. And I think like there was something, and I'm happy to share about it because I do think I just want to say that that's by no means the only way to come out to your children. The way we did it, it was just like our way of coming out to our children. And I think like that's also a part of like our maturation around or like our growth around our open relationship, because I think like for a long time, like we started our like non-monogamous journey when my kids were young, and there was no modeling out there to how to do that, like, and I'm this sex coach. So the topic of sexuality is kind of like in the field anyway. So I was navigating a lot. And for me and my core desires, what really turns me on is actually have it this like, I do like a little bit of secrecy, consensual secrecy. Just want to say, I do like to have this privacy, and I want to have my lovership and my lovership relationship kind of like for me on the side. And it wasn't something that I really like. I'm not a kitchen table poly. Like I don't want to, I love hearing about, I don't love hearing about other, I don't take it back. I don't mind hearing about, like other experiences, but I don't want to like sit around the table and have dinners and make it like a whole family experience. Like for me, I wanted to raise my family as our family unit, and then to have my lovership, my nourishment time for myself on the side whenever I needed it. And that's what really, that was my way. And because my husband wasn't having like long-term relationships with people, just kind of short and like sporadic, I was just like, it worked well. We didn't need to come out to anyone. It was not something that we needed to do. But then like, like our kids grew up and they're like teenagers, and we've been like thinking a lot of how are we telling them about our lifestyle and who we are, and is that like even something that they need to know about, because we didn't have to tell them, like that was not something they, some people never know about what their parents do in the bedroom because it was kind of like more like isolated from our family life. But I feel like being a sex coach and like leading Somatica, and also I think my husband with his like very deep need for transparency, he at some point we just felt like we wanted to come out to our children. And then it was the question of when was the right time, because they never grew up in that, right? So it's like you kind of bring it on them at some age. It's not like they saw us like having sex or like saw partners coming in and out. Like that wasn't in the conversation. I think like it was a big step to share it with our kids and kind of find the time that we felt was right for them. And by all means, it's not like they agree with us, okay? Like, like I hear lots of, oh my God, you should have done it much earlier. And I was like, really? I don't know if it would work for you. Like there's like, we're having like really open conversation about when was the right time. But I'm happy that they feel comfortable sharing their feelings with me. I feel like big win around that, and they don't need to hide their feelings. But each of them took it differently. I don't want to talk a lot about them because that's their
Yeah.
privacy.
Totally.
But I do want to talk about like this decision of coming out. I do feel that coming out to our kids was very important and was very important for them too, because that allowed them to develop, to have the open-mindedness and the idea of like, wow, I can actually create the life that I want for myself. And I love that because in that way it was good modeling. I don't know if it was right for us to come out earlier. It's still something that I wonder once in a while because I felt that they were not actually ready with the way that we did things. They were not ready for it. But I do know many families that like the kitchen table poly and they love to bring lovers around and they're doing it. And I think it's beautiful. It's really about like everything in sex and relationship, like finding what works for you and what is the thing that's like right for your style, your family, where your kids are, like what's right for even the environment they grew up with. Because I felt like kind of protective, we don't grow up in a big non-monogamous community here, so I felt that they were like a little bit too young to hold this information and waited for them to be more adult and capable to hold this information. That was our choice around that.
Yeah.
But there's no one size fits all here as well. Like anything.
Yeah. Everyone has to make the best decision for themselves.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, right? I think this is true for all of us. We're just doing the best we can with the tools and resources we've got. And if that's where you and your husband were at, and it's not even just about what do the kids need. That's important, but also like we're still two humans who have things that we're needing in this dynamic as well.
Yeah, definitely. I know. I don't always think like that. I do many times put my kids, for me, like trying to do the right things for my kids is actually a big priority. Even though I do think that I need to take care of myself as well, but I do care about my kids. And I do think that thinking about when is the right time. And again, like it doesn't matter that my kids might have grievances around it now, but they have those grievances from where they are now, not of when they were then.
Sure.
And there is something, in being a parent around evaluating your kids, especially with the lifestyle that you're leading in the environment, like what will be the right thing for them, And I do think like coming out of nowhere and doing it earlier when they're like adolescent or young adolescent would not be right for them. I still stand by it, but
totally.
But I do think if we had like a kitchen table poly, they could have been like grown into it in a much more organic way, right? But that's not our lifestyle and that's not what we like. So
Yeah, that all makes sense.
Yeah. And I definitely didn't mean to imply you didn't care how it impacted them. I know that was not the implication.
No, I just want to say that I do think that the parents' job is to care about the kids.
It is, for sure. For sure, yeah. And I guess I wasn't either. My sort of thought on it was it is important, and also we are limited by who we are too. Like we can only care in the way that we know how to care. We can only love in the way that we know how to love.
100%. Exactly. And like I would not change all my non-monogamous structure just to help introduce them to the idea of non-monogamy. You know what I mean? Like I would not turn to be invite everyone and have dinners together, even though maybe my kids would want that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like really balancing those. This is who I am, and this is what you might need, and we're like, man, it's like another relationship to navigate.
Totally. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Danielle. And we also wanted to make sure to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit more about the work that you do. And for anyone not familiar, just describing Somatica a little bit too.
Yeah, I would love that. So, and thank you. So, Somatica is a modality that is a method. It's a lesson I created based and rooted in what we found. We both have academic and learning, like lots of academic knowledge and learning, experiential learning under our belt. But one of the things that we found that was really missing is helping people learn intimacy skills and even understand that it's not something that you either have or not, and it's something that you can learn and really get better at, and every opportunity for intimacy gives you an opportunity to grow your skills and practice them. And Somatica is founded in mutual vulnerability and really kind of helping and trusting that, kind of helping people navigate this world of intimacy by being in intimacy with a coach, and really working on this feedback and mutual vulnerable connection and being authentic in the moment, and not just like giving advice or telling someone how to live their lives, because we really believe that people are different and they can live their lives in ways that work for them, and we are there to support them to live their best life.
Mhm.
And process the stuff that stands in the way, and sometimes decide that there are boundaries and they can't do things because it's too triggering, and they need to slow down or find a different configuration. So I want to talk about that as well, because we sometimes think about oh, you just need to work through it, but sometimes trauma is too great, and you know and you can't work through it, or you prefer to rearrange your life in ways that will be much more workable for you. And we're all managing this, what do we gain and what do we lose when we make any choices around that.
Mhm.
Yeah. And just to say that we train coaches to do this work, as you know, and then and it's fun to just go through the training. It's so empowering just to go through your training, even if you never want to coach anyone in your life, just for your own personal growth, to get those intimacy and relationship and sexuality skills, because then you can just use it for your life. And that's so much fun and saves you time.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that just from my own perspective, having gone through it, I think that was, and I'm not a practicing coach. I don't know that I will, but I think for myself, I took so much out of the experiences of learning these things and practicing them in the environment where, I think I often draw analogies back to sports and other things, or just other activities. And I think there's some piece that if Emma and I are only play basketball together, right? I'm sure, am I going to get better, and maybe we get better together, but there's a limit to it. Versus if we go and I start playing with somebody else and she starts playing, we can practice and learn things in a way that maybe oh, I could never learn that because we kept getting in each other's way. And now one or both of us sort of unlocked the key to the next level just by having an experience with somebody else, and not even non-monogamously, but through a coach or through a training program where we could talk about a thing that we'd never talked about. And so that was just a big part for me, was being able to be in these spaces where there was so much exposure and different ways and talking about it, that it opened up, paths and thoughts and uncovering things for myself that I wouldn't have otherwise. So even if you're never going to want to be a coach of any kind, I think you can get a lot out of going through just being in that environment with people.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel similarly to you. And then, yeah, just really, also really love to see, because again, my whole family went through Somatica, and just it's not like everyone's going to be a coach, but they it's finding common language and people, like-minded people, a community of people that's going to be yeah, I totally get what you're saying, and having common language to share your experiences with and develop friendships. I love the Somatica community. I love Somatic cats.
Yeah.
And I love what being formed outside of the classroom.
For sure. I have a funny story about the language piece. This happened after I got through the program. I was talking to somebody and I made the comment about de-shaming or de-shamifying something. And she was like, "Oh, so we're just making up words now?" And I was like, "Wait a minute." And I had to go Google it. I was like, "Is this not a word?" I thought it was a word for the whole time. I was like, "Well, it just makes sense as a word." So I thought it was a word. And then somebody was like, "Are you just making up words?" And I was like, "Well, shit, I didn't know I was making up words." So
I love that.
the common language is important, but it's good to know if it's a made up language too.
Pijamify is a made up word, but it makes so much sense, right?
Right?
Yeah.
So I vote that it should be a word.
Yeah,
I
right?
agree. We should add it to the dictionary.
I love it. Well, thank you, Danielle, for coming on, for sharing your story and for all the work that you do and put out into the world. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun, and I just got to see Finn's partner. I'm so happy.
It was so
brought
fun.
in. Thank you.
Yeah, is there anything else you wanted to get out there before we let you go?
No, that feels pretty complete and kind of really good. Yeah.
Well, then we will leave it there, and maybe someday we'll get a part 2.
I would love that. That would be awesome. Yeah.
Well, have a wonderful afternoon, and we will talk soon, Danielle. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. We'll talk soon.
And we're back. Thank you so much, Danielle, for coming on, being so vulnerable and sharing your story today. It was wonderful to talk with you, and we're excited to get this out there and share more about all of the work that you do too.
Yes, a quick reminder, you can check out all of the information about Danielle and her work and Somatica and all of those goodies over on the podcast show notes. You can find direct links in your podcast player or head over to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and click on the podcast tab.
We also wanted to remind all of you that our next monthly workshop for our community is coming up July 17th, and that is going to be on relational repair with David Cooley. You can join our community over on the community tab of our website and join all of the workshops there as well.
Plus, you get all sorts of other goodies by being in the community.
Yes, it's not just the workshops.
And then next week, we've got, what do we have, episode 400?
Episode 400.
Maybe we shouldn't say who it's going to be.
I don't think so. I think we need to wait.
You think we should wait?
Yeah, this is gonna be just a little cliffhanger.
Ooh, that's mean.
I
All
know.
right.
We gotta wait one more week for episode 400. We're super excited about it.
All right, we'll see you all then.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.